Welcome to TENG Insider Season 3. Today our topic is outreach for classical music in Singapore. I think today we are extremely privileged and honoured to actually have two of these big weights and old friends that we actually have, or rather old friends of mine. We have Mr. Kenneth Kwok, who is the CEO of Singapore Symphony Group. We also have Mr. Terence Ho, who is the Executive Director of the Singapore Chinese Orchestra. Thank you guys so much for actually coming to this small little talk show that we have and actually answering some really difficult questions that I might actually pose. I think the first thing that I would like to pose to maybe Terence first. How do you think the classical music sort of like landscape in Singapore has changed over the years? And do you find that it is still relevant in today's society?
Yeah, I would like to break it down into a different era, and it's just like when we study classical music of the history, it's evolved from the Renaissance to Baroque and all the way to today's contemporary. So in terms of the Chinese music scenes, you can see that in the 1950s to today, you see the great in terms of the orchestrations, in terms of the repertoire, in terms of the audience. And I will just talk about the audience and the programs that we play, the concert that we play, which is very much content-centric in the past. When I say content-centric, that cover not only the repertoire, but the orchestra, the conductors, the composer, and the soloists. So audience actually evolve with all these content. And in terms of the concert, that you can see that the 50s, we used to be a follower. When I say follower, which is we very much listen to follow the orchestra, follow the conductor, follow the soloist, and certain repertoire.
So we're talking about supposedly branded, reputable conductors
Yes.
and soloists, and so audiences were actually going towards or gravitating towards such people during that period of time.
Yeah, in fact today you can see that we still have these generations of our audience that follow through that 60s, 70s repertoire. And they will request even for SCO to stage a concert just for that 60s, 70s repertoires. When we plan our concert series, which is we are very concerned that how do we grow young audience, new audience. At the same time, we have to take care of that so-called returning audience at the generations of their audience. So in a way that the concert series that we create in our season, which is very much not only content-centric, but also very audience-based centric to look at that generations of the audience that we are performing for.
So how about you, Kenneth? What does the SSO actually do to actually maintain its relevance among, I would say, younger audiences today?
I think everything that Terence said, really resonates with us as well. I mean, you look at Western classical music, the reality is that there's always going to be a demand for your Mozart, your Beethoven, your Mahler, and that's great. I mean, these are classic works, in the Western classical music canon. It's like Shakespeare, right? Or the Brontes, right? Everyone loves such music because there is a quality there, a musical experience that you can have that's very special. But I think what has evolved and what I think is very interesting is people's openness to seeing classical music or symphonic music not just as a thing by itself, but actually how it's part of. I think what's interesting now is that audiences are really looking at classical music in different ways, in different settings as well. I think both of us do a lot of work in community spaces. We are looking not just, to the West. So just like you can like Taylor Swift and Beyonce, you can also like Chloe Chua, you can also like Ko Cheng Jin, right? So I think both of us, both orchestras are very committed as well to nurturing Singapore sounds and music and Singapore musicians as well. And I think there's a great interest among Singapore audiences for that, yeah.
So let's talk about SCO. How is SCO attracting a younger breed of audiences in Singapore, or the younger generation of audiences?
Yeah, we have to stay relevant. I think to stay relevant with the young audience, and we have to identify where they are, what they like, and at the same time, we have close to about 150 Chinese orchestra in school, in the community, in the clan. So we also want to target on these groups of young people that learn and play the Chinese musical instruments, the taste, the style, and the instruments that play. I mean, recently that we see that there are more Guzheng ensemble than the Chinese orchestra. Oh, that's a good thing, but we need to be careful in terms of how do we want to develop the young musicians to turn out to be your audience, your future audience, your futures to advocate this genre of the Chinese music. So the new audience, young audience is always in our first of the list. That when we design our concert seasons, there will be a series, there will be a concert for the audience. For instance, we're going to stage 6 or 7 concerts of the PABL. So PABL stands for Performing Arts-Based Learning. So we're going to have the Set 1 and Set 2 students to come to watch, I believe, SSO and SCO. So that concert is going to happen, but we're not just going to perform that concert for them. The concert content got to be interesting and designed.
And guided.
Yes. It's very similar to what we just staged called a concert in progress. So this concert in progress is meant for the to target on the Singapore Youth Festivals contents and the programs. So our principal conductor, Kwek Ling Kiong, actually put in efforts to think, to design, and to guide the students. Most of them, of these primary school students, that they carry with their score, read the score, and the SCO will do the set piece. And after the set piece, for the youth festival, and then after the set piece, we will do 3 repertoires, which is the favorite pieces of these Chinese orchestra in school. So we gather these repertoire together and to present for this group of students. They are actually player, school Chinese orchestra player in primary school and in secondary school. So through this CIP, concert in progress, we hope to develop and to grow from players to audience to and so on and so forth.
I think as Terence said, partnerships with schools very important. So we do have similar partnerships for the Performing Arts-Based Learning, the SYF demonstration concerts with the Ministry of Education. You have programs where school students come to the concert halls, and you also have programs where you bring the musical performances into the schools, right? And then we think it's also very important to have affordable ticket prices, so that's something we are very careful about. So currently our ticket price is about $10-15 for a student ticket, which we think is fairly reasonable. But we also have free concert programs as well. So we do a free lunchtime concert, concerts in the gardens, in the parks, etc. But what I wanted to say was that I think for all that we are doing, we should also celebrate the fact that actually in Singapore, we do have many young audiences already coming to our concert halls. In some other countries, when you go to a concert, it's a sea of white hair. It's really great. Yeah. You know, so when I joined the SSO, I mean, that was something that I thought we should celebrate. Definitely, we want to continue to nurture young audiences. But I mean, right now for us, our average age of attendees for our SSO concerts is late 30s, early 40s, and that is remarkable compared to other countries for classical music in that sense.
Is it the same for SCO as well?
Very much so.
At that age range, that will also depend on the kind of a concert that we stage. Like for our young children concert, the young people concert, actually we attracted a group of young mothers, family that together with the kids to attend most of our YCC. And the good thing is we build this group of audience and they return. They turn out to be new audience, returning audience year after year, concert after concert. So in a way that we are building a series of audience for our particular concert.
And back to Kenneth as well, you were talking about celebrating the number of young audiences that you have. When you actually took on the role of a CEO and SSO, did you realize that you actually had this number of young audiences?
Yeah, I mean, I started my career as a school teacher. So for me, this idea of, exciting and engaging young people was very much a part of what I believe in is so important. And for me to come to SSO, I mean, we already have a youth orchestra, we have a children's choir, we have a youth choir. So I know that SSO believe very much in programs that involve youth as participants. But through programs like film music, through like our partnership with TwoSet Violin, we realized you're actually opening up to teenagers who get very excited about the programs. To come to a concert hall and hear the audience screaming because we're partnering TwoSet Violin was just very exciting for us. But I think, as Terence was saying, it's also the relationship with families. So we have a babies proms program for toddlers and parents. So we work with parents blogs, and we realize, there's a market there that comes back year after year. The parents and the children like that familiarity of a regular program.
Yeah, and you can also scream in the concert, and it's absolutely fine.
We have kids running, playing in the hall, in the aisle, and that's part of the excitement. We get a kid to come up on stage and conduct the orchestra, and I think you need to think of different ways to make concerts open to people, right? You must still have your very traditional, conventional ones because there's a market for that, but then there's also a market for more relaxed performances, and I think every orchestra needs to think about how you provide for different audiences.
And it sounds very much as if there's always tailored programs for tailored audiences in that sense. And you have a diversity of programs that actually tailor themselves to the audiences. So I think I'm going to go on the flip side. I'm just going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate. What are the challenges that we usually face in actually getting new audiences to step into the concert hall? Are we dealing with stereotypes? Are we dealing with just people who just find it very difficult to accept the type of music? What are the challenges that both of you actually face?
I must say that we are not only the two national orchestra, we are also the two people's orchestra. Why? Because I believe SSO and SCO need to stage more than 100 concerts a year. It's very different from the orchestra out there. There's only one or two agenda in terms of concert series. You can see that we perform for a diversified groups of audience, cater from the metric of vertical and the broad. We're talking about the number of programs that we design for our seasons. Let's say SEO perform 20 set of programs here. Can you imagine that in China, I use the Beijing 中央民族乐团 or Shanghai, they just need to plan less than 10 programs.
One program and you can tour.
Why? Because they can tour. I cannot perform in Singapore Conference Hall. The next day I go to Esplanade. You're not going to sell tickets.
They have enough audience.
Correct.
Yeah, so scalability is an issue here.
So that's a greatest challenge that we face. We have to keep thinking, create new programs for the targeted audience, as what you say, the tailor-made programs for the tailored groups of audience. And it's not one set, or neither two sets, but it's 20 sets of programs in order to fulfill the market of the audience. So I think that's the greatest challenge. Creativity, which is got to run every day, we have to think about new programs, new artists to engage, new compositions. So in terms of cost, in terms of resources, in terms of the number of programs that we have to create for the seasons, and plus our concert tour as well. So we have different sets of a different level and different the metric of the challenges that we are facing.
Do you find that you guys are being spread a little bit too thin sometimes?
In a way, that's why we have to be focused, be targeted. When we create the 5 series in our season, we always think about the audience, thinking about the work, thinking about sustainability, how this work can be played one season after another.
I think we are very lucky. To be honest, the SSO, we normally have about 90% average house, which I think is a very strong affirmation and encouragement that audiences like what we are producing. As Terence said, one of the challenges for both the national orchestras is that we do a very regular heartbeat of program throughout the year, which I think is fantastic. This means that when I talk to someone who says, I've never been to the SSO, or I've not been for a very long time, I can tell them,
you can just rope them into a next concert.
This Thursday, are you free? Not free, never mind. Next Thursday also got, next Friday also got, Whereas if, my background is in theatre, right? So if you're a theatre company, it's much harder. You have to be like, maybe 3 months later is my next show.
The production happens much later.
So I think for us, that is a great tool to keep audiences coming back. But I think what is challenging then is also, as Terence was saying, your programming needs to be very strong because you're expecting people to come back, in some cases, week after week after week. What's going to draw them back? It does also mean a lot of cost. So I have to be frank, I think like all arts groups, we face the challenge of inflation, rising costs, and grappling. That's very, very real for us, I think. Young people, I must say, that stereotype idea that they have, oh, they're afraid of classical music, I think that has really changed a lot, especially with all the work that everyone is doing, not just us, but all arts groups are doing with schools, with students. But I think what is challenging is the competition for attention. I look at Ed Sheeran, I look at Coldplay, I look at Taylor Swift. I'm so envious of the mind share that they have. I wish that, if I give a hat to someone would be so excited, right? But sadly, no. So I think that part is still different. We have a lot of loyal attendees and audiences, but I think to say that we are at the level of a pop star, I think we still have some way to go. When we have a concert with Chloe Chua, it's amazing. So many young people fill the concert hall, and you can feel the excitement that they have for her.
Because she's aspirational as well.
Exactly. How do we excite people like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you watch her, I mean, if I were a parent or whatever, I'll just bring my child over and say, this is aspirational in that sense.
And that's why it's so important, as you said, that we continue to commission and program Singaporeans, young Singaporeans, so that that's how I feel you cultivate the next generation of audiences as well, because they want to come and be inspired and aspire to what they see on stage, right? Or what they hear on stage. And I think that's a very important part of the work that all the arts companies are doing in Singapore.
I want to talk a little bit now about something that I recently learned quite a little bit about when I was in Hong Kong recently, and it's art and tech. There has been a lot of emphasis in Hong Kong right now recently on the idea of art and tech. What do you think about the various different art forms, both the Chinese orchestra and the symphony orchestra, and tech? Do you think they should be working side by side, or there should be a counterbalance on both of them? Or should there be something like that there needs to be an evolution of the forms? So I think both the Chinese orchestra and the symphony orchestra were both created ensembles in a world where there was not a lot of tech advancement at the period of time. And so that's why the orchestra has a certain shape, a certain size, a certain number, and you need a certain number of construction to get this type of sound. So I just want to have a little bit of an idea on what you think has a part, how tech has a part to play.
I mean, I have to be very honest. I think we haven't really looked into combining technology very much in terms of the content of the program, because there is a demand for concerts in a certain way. We are part of a tradition, and I think we want to respect that tradition as well. So I think, we're not suddenly going to have multimedia background while listening to Beethoven, but we can. So again, it's that diversity of programs. I mean, we have done a program where we have a light artist, on stage with the chamber group, performing. So I think we are still making tentative steps, but I must say, I'm not going to pretend that SSO has done major, art and tech intersections. But I think where tech is a big part of what the SSO does is in terms of marketing, in terms of digital productions, in terms of making our concerts available online, which we realized that, again, there is this huge interest online. The number of viewers that we have has just increased exponentially year on year.
Especially after COVID as well.
Especially after COVID. People are used to going online. They understand what it means to go online and watch something, and realizing that there is a certain artistry in that. So we're also thinking, when we do, you don't just put a camera in front and film, right? You have to actually do close-ups, you have to
You cut from one to
I have seen your TENG Insider videos, right? Got interstitial, got animation, everything, right? So I think, we need to change that. But if you ask me, the live concerts, I think, we do film screenings and all that, but I must say, I don't think we have really revolutionized the way the orchestra works with tech in terms of the live concerts. And that's something I think we do need to think about.
I think for SCO or for the Chinese orchestra, we feel that tech must be an integral part of the productions, integral part of the concerts. Even it's an ecosystem. So I think the COVID helped quite a fair bit for us to reach out. When I say digital reach, is very much how do we make use of our social media. I think that's on the marketing part. But just like the compositions, we use the Sibelius, we use the Finale software, and that's how we connect to the composer. And the composer will just need to compose with the programs, and just a button click and they send the score, whether the part score or the orchestra score. And that translates into iPad and for reading purpose.
Is SCO going to work on something like that, where you are going to have a direct-to-distribution electronic kind of score kind of thing?
That's part of our aspiration, but we also need to be mindful that that tech cannot do everything. The touch of the music, the expression of the music, you require the musician to read, not only read notes, but to express what's behind that. So that's one part of the tech that we are very much doing. On the other side, we always feel that the reach to the audience, especially for the young audience, how do we get to them, whether Instagram, whether social media, I think that's one of the channels that we are looking at in terms of house programs, how you read house program in the concert hall, and now we are looking at the e-score. So we need to design these as a holistic package of tech, and for the composer, for the conductor, and for the musicians, and for the orchestra administrator as well. So in a way that the HR system software, the marketing software, the even logistic software, that how do we measure acoustic in a way that we have a Maya system that run the concert hall. So I feel that you cannot live behind without a tech in any of the programs in this ecosystem of the orchestra management.
But how we find a way to integrate it a lot better in that sense.
So it depends on the audience experience, right? Because likewise, besides doing physical program brochures, we also do digital program brochures. But then I actually have audience members complain that,
they still want the physicality of it.
They complain that the light, when the person next to them is checking their phone, it
sort of flashes back.
Yeah, flashes back at the people around them, right? But this is the way forward. Digital programs is the way of the future. You have to go along with it. And then that was when I realized there are really people who just want to come to the concert hall, not have all this bright lights or whatever. They want to just focus on the music.
That they can actually appreciate the sound. And that's what concert halls are built for,
Exactly.
in that sense, to get the best resonance, to get the best acoustics.
And not to be distracted by anything else. They want that private, personal space with the orchestra.
But again, a constant struggle, because how much to apportion for this one and apportion, and then thereafter it spreads you guys a little bit thin. It's a constant juggle that you have. I think my last question for you guys is, how does the SSO and the SCO each feel that you're contributing to a sustainable landscape of music and Singaporean musicians?
We want to be an ambassador for Singapore. That's why we conduct our concert tour. Not only that, we design programs that is with the Singaporean composer and of course with Singaporean musicians. I think that's one part. But on the other part is we always want to think about how our music can touch the people for their identity. How do you differentiate SCO and Hong Kong and China and overseas Chinese orchestra? So we hope that the audience, when they close the eye and listen to SCO, this is SCO. This is the Singaporean style of Chinese music that I want to listen to. So I think that's a part of identity that we are creating, building.
Do you think SCO has a very distinct identity or a very unique identity from let's say, all the other Chinese orchestras in the world?
We have a group of repertoires that signify the, specially commissioned by the Singaporean composer. However, we think that that's not enough. There's never enough for creating this kind of repertoire. And on the other side is the style of playing. I think the style of playing in the Chinese orchestra, it got to be developed and to be cultivated. And that got to do with the training of the musicians and the conductors as well. How they interpret, how they conduct, how they express the piece of the music. That part, which is something that we want to build on, continue to grow, and continue to that's so important, that the education. Yes, the culture of the orchestra. Unspoken, but it's really inner, and also for the music college and academy to develop the kind of a training. So I feel that this is something that we need to build and to grow.
Three things. One is the very important role that we play in nurturing the next generation of music lovers and musicians, right? So through the youth orchestra, through outreach programs, partnerships with schools. The other part I think is very important is, as a national orchestra, we do have resources, right, to actually bring in some of the best soloists and conductors around the world. And I really appreciate the fact that what we are trying to do is to offer Singaporeans the chance to hear world-class music in Singapore. You don't need to fly to London or Berlin to hear great music. You can hear great music right here in Singapore, sometimes free in our community concerts, for example, accessible. Yeah, exactly, right? So we're trying to build that attraction within Singapore. And I think the last part for me is really pride. The pride that we hope we can be a source of national pride for Singapore. Part of it is, as Terence said, commissioning new work by Singapore composers, giving great talents like Kevin Loh, Chloe Chua a platform, on Singapore stages. But we were named by the BBC Music Magazine in 2022 as one of the world's best orchestras. We were one of only 2 Asian orchestras. We were the second youngest orchestra. And this is, for Western symphonic music, you're competing against the world's greats. And I'm not going to sit here and say we are number 1 in the world. No way, right? But I think the fact that we have achieved what we have, as we are able to attract very good musicians. We have musicians from so many different countries who apply, who audition for us, who join the orchestra. There is interest in Singapore's music, right? In classical music, and what Singapore's arts companies are capable of. And I think, I hope that Singaporeans know this and are proud of us. Earlier in 2022, both of our orchestras, we were on the UK's classical music charts.
Yeah, you guys, yeah.
And that was just wonderful. And I think one of the Tao Liang, one of the local, Straits Times reviewer, was saying how proud he was, to open Gramophone magazine.
And you actually
see
have 2 of the
Singapore
Singaporean names.
So I think we are punching above our weight. I think as arts companies, and that's our part in trying to build that arts
And it really harks back to what you said earlier about your mission, whether it's for pride, whether it's to actually be part of a cultural fabric on Singapore's history, and then similarly also to actually have that type of experiences that you get from all your audiences. So I would like to thank Mr. Kenneth Kwok as well as Mr. Terence Ho for actually appearing in our 3rd season of TENG Insider.